Have you experienced sexual abuse? And have you found it difficult to navigate sex and intimacy since? Do you get the ick sometimes? And do you feel unexpectedly triggered and it feels like it comes out of nowhere? Do you sometimes feel great about sex and intimacy? It's something that you really want to engage in, but your body doesn't seem to agree? Does your partner take it personally? Do they feel rejected by it? And is it difficult for you to explain exactly what's going on for you? Do you feel guilty about your responses? Have you ever wondered why that is? Do you ever worry that the things that you feel might not be normal and that there might be something wrong with you? You're not alone. I'm Shelley Dipros. I'm a registered sex, relationship and trauma therapist. I'm using my experience from working privately and in the NHS to normalise some of the things that you might be feeling in sex and intimacy if you've experienced sexual abuse. Some of your reactions might feel unsavoury and unexpected, and some of what we talk about in this series might be uncomfortable for you to hear. I'm going to go about it and deliver it as gently and kindly as I can. In this 5-part series funded by the South Yorkshire Crime Prevention Unit, we'll be exploring some of the things that you might have feared speaking about. My hope is to normalise some of the responses that you might be feeling and to help you connect positively to your sexual self again. Some of the content that we talk about today might be triggering. I want you to take it steady. I want you to take breaks. Be mindful of who might be around you and who could be listening to this content. There's no pressure to take it all in at once. Take it at your own pace. In this episode, we're going to be normalising physical reactions during sexual abuse, such as signs of arousal. You're welcome here. There are no wrong questions. Please know that you are safe. Over the years in private practice and in the NHS, I've worked with lots of people who've been through sexual abuse in childhood or in adulthood, sometimes both. And there's something which I always like to voice before it's even asked. And it's not because it isn't asked, and it's not because people aren't curious about it. It's because there is so much shame and they feel so concerned about their responses. And so I'm going to deliver this in the best way that I can. So when I talk about this topic, I see the way that people's body language changes. I see that relief. I see that feeling of validation. And I see that fear leave their body, because if I'm saying this through my experience as a sex therapist, then they know that it must be true and they know that I must have heard it before. And what I want you to know is that if you experience sexual arousal during sexual abuse, it is completely normal. And we're going to talk about why that might be. So here it is. It's really normal to experience things like erections, lubrication, ejaculation or orgasm during sexual abuse. It's not something that your mind is connected to, but it's a physical response that we all have because our bodies are capable of experiencing physical responses that aren't linked to the way that we think. So let's start with a little bit of myth busting. First of all, I want to let you know that sexual abuse doesn't have to be penetrative. It's really sad when I see people who say, I can't really complain about it. I wasn't penetrated, so I guess it doesn't really count like it does for other people. I've got to tell you that it absolutely does. Just because something wasn't penetrated does not mean that you didn't experience sexual abuse. It doesn't mean that your body didn't go through trauma and you don't still find that really difficult. Thinking that abuse needs to be penetrative is a myth that keeps people silent. It's a myth that makes people think they don't have a right to call it abuse. But if something happened to your body that you didn't want it to, then it is abusive. I also want to make it clear that sexual abuse can happen to anyone. It can happen to men, women, trans people, non-binary people, children, adults, elderly. Sexual abuse doesn't discriminate. It doesn't come down to class. It isn't a part of a particular religion. It happens to everyone, everywhere. So some of the impacts and symptoms that we might feel, which are probably more well known, is that we can get things like PTSD, where we will relive the occasion. We can get triggers to that and we don't really know where they've come from. We can experience depression, dissociation, anxiety, lack of sleep, nightmares. But also the things that people don't talk about is how abuse can impact you and your sex life and your ability to be intimate with people. People can experience pain during sex, they can have erectile issues or ejaculation issues, and they can also really just struggle with being intimate and connected and close at that moment in time. Some people find that there are sexual acts that they can't do, not necessarily because it's directly linked to an experience that they had during their sexual abuse, but sometimes the psychology of that is also very complex. So one of the most underestimated and misunderstood realities that keeps shame very, very present for people who've experienced abuse is this. It's biologically possible, normal for someone to experience arousal during sexual abuse. It doesn't mean that you wanted it. It doesn't mean that you consented. It doesn't mean someone could see something in you that you didn't know was there. It means that your body responded in the way that it's biologically programmed to do. It's what bodies do when they're touched in certain ways. And the physical response isn't connected to the mental at all. And it certainly does not mean that the abuser brought it out of you. The number of times that I've sat in a room with clients who have said, I shouldn't have given that to that person, I shouldn't have given that to my abuser. It's not your fault. Nothing that you did, nothing that the abuser did, created a sexual response that you wanted to give, were attached to, enjoyed. I can't stress how important it is that you know that that's not your fault. Your body didn't betray you. It just did what bodies do. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening biologically. So the body's sexual response system is reflexive. It's not proactive. It responds to what's happening to it. It's not a system that checks in with the brain or the emotions. It's a system that only responds to physical touch. Just like a sneeze or a shiver or nocturnal erections that happen all night, it's a physical response. And our bodies have physical responses to certain things. So if we get a draft on our arm, we might get goosebumps. Penises will have blood flow through them throughout the night. It's not that an erection is a sign of arousal. It's a sign that there is blood being pumped into that appendage. So your genitals respond to touch, even in the most distressing or uncomfortable or non-consensual situations, they will still respond. I want to assure people with penises that developing an erection or having ejaculation or orgasm during sexual abuse does not mean that you consented to it. It does not mean that you got any enjoyment. But it's incredibly distressing, and it's certainly one of the things that keeps the shame really attached to the situation. I think it's particularly difficult for people with penises to carry that shame if they've experienced an erection or ejaculation during sexual abuse, because there's a more physical representation of that, whereas people with vulvas, it's not as obvious. And I've certainly heard situations where survivors have told me that their abuser will make comments about or reference to the erection as a marker of arousal. It doesn't mean that you were mentally stimulated by it. It means that your body reacted in a way that bodies react. Remember that the body's response to physical touch is the same response as breathing or digestion. In other words, it's not something that you control, you are controlled by it. In some cases, during sexual abuse, your body might orgasm. And again, this is a biological response. And I think what can make that particularly frustrating for some people is that they can struggle to orgasm after abuse with their partners in consensual situations. If this happened to you, I want to tell you as clearly as I can, your body did not betray you. There is not a part of you that you're not attached to that in some way enjoyed this. It is not your body's fault. It's not your fault. Your body responded physiologically. You did not respond emotionally with arousal or pleasure. So now I'm going to talk about reframing the narrative. Survivors of sexual abuse will carry deep set shame around this. And they'll quite often wonder, does it mean that I wanted it? Does it mean that the person who did this to me saw something in me? And I think this is really relevant when this is child-on-child abuse. when it's a child of a similar age or maybe sort of a few years older. And in those cases, it's quite complicated because we can kind of have some empathy for a child doing it to another child, and it creates quite a complicated response in us. Doesn't mean that you wanted it. It doesn't mean that you gave them permission. It doesn't mean that you consented. It doesn't mean that your body gave them permission. It only means that your body responded in a way that bodies do. I want you to really hear me when I say that physical response does not equal consent. Unfortunately, lots of perpetrators will use these involuntary responses to create their own narrative that they did nothing wrong. They will twist those responses, such as orgasm or lubrication or erections, to say that in some way it was consensual. And I'm sure that you know that it wasn't. I'm sure you know that that's not what you wanted. And the other truth is that the presence of arousal does not cancel out trauma. It doesn't make it okay, and it doesn't make it heal. And in fact, it often adds to it. The biggest thing that keeps people moving on from sexual abuse is the shame. And the biggest pieces of shame I see in my clients is when they've experienced some form of arousal during sexual abuse, which is why I wanted to make this today, to tell you that you're not alone, and it's common and it's normal and it's not connected to you or any way that you found that experience emotionally. It's okay to feel confused by it. It's okay to feel angry. It's really complex stuff. It's a lot to wrap your head around. And I hope that what you're hearing as you listen to me say this is that it's okay to feel what you're feeling right now in this moment. Your body and the type of sexual activity that you enjoy now have no relation to that abuse. Your body isn't your enemy, and the shame that you feel doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the person that violated your boundaries. So I want to talk about some of the ways that we heal and move forward from sexual abuse, particularly relating to how we let go of how we might have experienced arousal or had a physical response during sexual abuse. The way that we heal from this and find a new way to relate to our sexuality after sexual abuse can be complicated and requires bravery and requires you to be really honest with yourself. It starts with validation. It starts by you accepting that your reaction at that time was normal and that your feelings make sense and that you're not alone. And the shame is not yours to hold. You're not broken. You're not guilty. You're not weird. There isn't anything wrong with you because you experience things in a certain way at that time. Absolutely are worthy of intimacy and a great sex life that is fulfilling and makes you happy. And you get to do the things that you want to do because you enjoy them 100%. And you do that 100% of the time. You can connect with your sexuality in your own way. You don't need to be pathologized. There are texts out there which will say that people who have been abused are into BDSM, they're into kink, they like to be controlled or dominated, and it's because they were abused. That's not necessarily true. And the way that you enjoy sex now is how you enjoy sex now. And nobody can undo that for you. They don't have to undo that for you. So I guess the overall message of how you connect to your sexuality now is it is your body and you do it your way. It helps to have open communication. It helps to discuss what you want to do before you do it. One of the things that's really beneficial to remember, particularly if you've been through sexual abuse, and actually this is something that's helpful for anybody to do, is to kind of approach sex as you would going to a restaurant. You wouldn't be in a restaurant and you wouldn't say, just bring me whatever. You would want to look at the menu. And so it's really helpful to have a conversation beforehand to say, what do you feel like doing? How do you want to do it? Just as you would choosing a meal, you would decide, what you wanted to eat with it, whether you wanted salad or potatoes. And it's really helpful to have a conversation about that, because what happens then is that your body is aware of the boundaries and it's aware what it can and can't experience. And it's almost about giving your body that permission. It's about understanding that you being orgasmic or experiencing desire or arousal during sexual abuse does not mean that you can't do it now. One is a physical response, one is an emotional response. We can join the two, and that's ideal. But it's really important for you to give yourself permission to be a sexual being and to reclaim that back and to take it for yourself, connect to your own sexuality, become the sexual being that you want to be. And having a conversation about that in terms of what you want to do next and how you want to carry out that sexual act is ideal. And so communication about that is really, really helpful. It's really healthy. Nothing that you do and the way that you engage sexually is because of what happened to you. The type of porn that you might watch, the type of sexual acts you like to do, are not born out of being broken. You're not broken. As long as what you're doing is safe and legal, no one is getting hurt, you absolutely are entitled to experience sex in the way that you want to. Please don't let anybody label you with anything that doesn't fit you. I hope that just by hearing this podcast, you start realising that you're not the only one, that your body did what it was wired to do, that you are normal, you are capable of being a sexual being. You are entitled and allowed to be orgasmic and experience arousal and pleasure. And you're allowed to be angry, and your story matters. You're allowed to take your time. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Thank you for being so brave. If anything about this episode has been hard to hear, I encourage you to take care of yourself. Take a break, maybe take a walk, talk to someone that you feel safe with. I'm going to include some support resources below, and I invite you to do just a little brief exercise with me now, just to help you settle yourself back into this space. I appreciate you have got to go on with your day today, so let's get you into a nice place. So what I'm going to invite you to do right now is to just look around your space, and I just want you to find 5 things that you can see, and I want you to say them out loud really nicely. So we're just looking around, finding 5 things that we can see, saying them out loud. The reason that we say them out loud is that it's quite grounding within itself just to speak out loud, particularly when you spend a period listening to quite difficult things. Then what we're going to do is we're going to find 4 things that we can touch. So we can touch our hands, you might feel your bottom on the seat, you might feel your feet on the floor, you might feel your back against the chair. We're going to find 3 things that we can hear. I can hear the rain today, I can hear my voice, I can hear some birds singing. We're going to find 2 things that we can smell. It might be what's in the air generally, you might just smell your clothing, you might smell your own perfume. And we're just going to think about 1 thing that we can taste, which is usually the last thing we've eaten. I hope that's brought you back into a nice centered space where you feel present and you know that you're in the here and now. Thank you for listening. Go gently.